You already know what went down this week. Silver punched through $55. Asian markets bled more than $1 trillion in the span of a few hours. The UN pulled its escort operation out of Hormuz. A cargo vessel took a drone to the hull. You've scrolled the headlines, you've watched the ticker. What you almost certainly haven't been told is why all four of those things landed in the exact same moment. And here's the bigger piece nobody's connecting. 3 of them are gone by Tuesday morning, and the 4th one is what turns Monday into one of the most violent single sessions this market has printed since February. That's what this is, not a recap, a decode. Because the gap between the person who dumps everything at $57 and the person who backs up the truck at $57 comes down to one skill: knowing which of these pressures are temporary and which ones are baked into the structure. And right now, in this exact window, that one distinction is worth more than anything else I could tell you. I'm John, this is OG Asian Guy. Let's get into it. Here's what every major outlet got flat out wrong this week. Open any financial publication and you'll find the same line copy-pasted across all of them. Silver drops as Iran peace deal cools safe haven demand. Some flavor of that sentence again and again. And it isn't just lazy, it's the story told in reverse. Walk through what actually occurred. Iran's Revolutionary Guard flew a one-way attack drone straight into the bridge of the Ever Lovely, a container ship crossing the Strait of Hormuz this past Thursday, June 25th. Within hours, the United Nations International Maritime Organization shut down its entire Hormuz escort program, an operation that had been live for exactly 48 hours. 57 vessels, 1,100 crew pulled. And before the strike even happened, the IRGC was broadcasting over the Open Marine VHF channel, telling every ship in range that safe transit was only guaranteed through Iran-approved corridors, and that any captain who ignored that was on his own. That is not how a country that signed onto peace behaves. That is not a safe haven trade unwinding. That is the Strait of Hormuz still being a live, contested waterway, 11 days after the ceasefire ink dried, and silver sitting at $57. If you heard, the peace deal killed silver this week and nodded along, I get it. It's a clean story. It sounds like it fits. But the second you actually look at what's happening in the Strait, the whole thing falls apart in your hands. The peace deal angle is the cover. The real story is 4 distinct events colliding at the same instant, 3 of them already burning out, and 1 of them getting more dangerous by the hour. Let me lay out all 4. And as I go, I want you tracking one thing. Each one runs on a different clock, because right now the clock is the entire game. Because number 1 is the Federal Reserve. This one's legitimate, and I'm not going to wave it away. Kevin Warsh stepped into the Fed chair, and his June 17th FOMC statement landed harder than almost anyone had modeled. Rates held at 3.5 to 3.75%, though, but the committee stripped its easing bias out of the statement completely. 9 of the 19 members are now penciling in at least one hike before year-end. And Thursday's PCE inflation read for May came in at 4.1% year-over-year, climbing from April's 3.8% and sitting above the Fed's entire target band. The Fed's own policy rate is now parked below the very inflation it's supposed to be taming. That mix, rising real yields, the dollar at a one-year high, yanks the mechanical floor out from under assets that don't pay you to hold them. Silver, gold. This isn't a debate about philosophy. It's a transmission mechanism. Quant funds run real yield models. When the model flags that real yields crossed a line, it auto-dumps non-yielding commodity exposure. No one's reviewing supply deficits. No one's pulling vault data. It's automatic. That's the weight that's been sitting on silver all month. But here's the part that matters for Monday. This is no longer fresh news. The Warsh Fed has been telegraphing this exact stance for 9 straight days. The 4.1 PCE print landed right on consensus. Zero upside surprise. And when a selling driver stops producing new information, the pressure it generates starts to rot. The hike story is already in the price. The remaining downside from this one is draining away as we roll into the weekend. Because number 2 is Korea. And this is the single most misread driver of the whole week. Back in late May, Korea's Financial Supervisory Service signed off on 16 single-stock leveraged ETFs tied to Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, the 2 largest AI chip makers on the planet. SK Hynix alone supplies more than half the high-bandwidth memory feeding NVIDIA's entire AI build-out. Retail traders poured into those products as the Kospi ripped to a record above 9,100. Then, on June 23rd, the head of the Korean regulator publicly said he regretted approving them. That one sentence set off simultaneous margin calls across thousands of retail accounts. Samsung dropped 12.31% in a single session. SK Hynix fell 12.47. 742 trillion won evaporated in 24 hours. Circuit breakers tripped twice. And that forced selling spilled out across every liquid market on Earth. silver futures included because silver is one of the most liquid commodity markets in existence, and you can offload a massive position in it at any hour, in any time zone. Silver had absolutely nothing to do with Korean chip ETFs. There's no logical thread connecting a leveraged Samsung bet to a structural silver supply shortfall, but markets in the middle of a forced liquidation don't ask whether an asset deserves to be sold. They ask what's liquid. And silver is almost always the answer. This one's got an expiration stamped on it too. The quarter-end rebalancing that turbocharged the Korean selling wraps up at the close of business on Monday, June 30th. That's the hard calendar deadline for institutional books to rebalance. Between now and then, funds that ran overweight equities through the first half AI rally have to rotate into fixed income, and silver futures get tagged as a risk asset and dumped. Come Tuesday, July 1st, that rotation is finished. The seller just vanishes overnight. Because number 3, and this is the one the entire mainstream narrative is wrongly built on, the oil crash. Brent went from $114 a barrel in April to $73 this week, a 34% collapse in under 2 months. And every cent of that drop is the market pricing in a total, permanent resolution of the Hormuz risk premium. Each dollar is the market declaring the war over, the strait open, oil flowing free. That assumption just sprouted a serious crack. The ever-lovely strike. The IRGC's VHF warnings ahead of it, the UN scrapping its escort program. 2 Panama-flagged ships ordered by IRGC warships to change heading right after the attack. None of that reads like a party that's accepted freedom of navigation as a closed matter. All of it reads like a party probing exactly how far it can push what it signed. Brent's sitting at $73.91 as I record this, down roughly 2% on the day. The market hasn't repriced sharply higher yet. That's just what Fridays do. Institutions close their books heading into the weekend. They don't open big new positions Friday afternoon on top of a geopolitical event that's still unfolding. The repricing comes Sunday night, when Asian markets reopen. If Brent gaps above $78 by Monday's open, the deflation story that carried the dollar to a 1-year high starts coming undone in real time. The Fed's September math shifts entirely if oil's back at $85. With the Strategic Petroleum Reserve sitting at 340.3 million barrels, its thinnest level since 1983. The whole peace deal killed inflation thesis that's been hammering metals for 2 weeks hangs completely on Hormuz staying open, and Hormuz is not acting settled. Now let me take you inside the vault, because while the paper market was flashing $55 on Tuesday, the physical world was screaming something totally different. COMEX registered silver, as of June 24th. 87.1 million ounces. Registered is the only figure that counts for delivery. It means the metal is physically present, fully committed, and legally deliverable against a futures contract. 87.1 million ounces. July 2026, front month open interest, as of the 24th, 22,513 contracts. Each contract is 5,000 ounces. That's 112.6 million ounces of paper silver, carrying the legal right to demand physical delivery starting Monday, June 30th. First notice day, 72 hours out. Coverage ratio, 77%. Sounds fine, until you look at what actually standing for delivery has looked like this year. March 2026 saw over 9,000 contracts demand real metal. May 2026, over 6,000. These were industrial buyers, procurement teams at chip fabs, solar manufacturers, EV component suppliers, who spent 13 weeks of Hormuz disruption building physical silver pipelines, and whose needs did not evaporate the moment a ceasefire got signed. Those pipelines are maturing this week at the COMEX delivery window, at the precise moment the paper price printed a 7-month low. Paper leverage on this July contract, 6-to-1. $6 of paper claims for every single dollar of deliverable physical metal. That kind of compression doesn't unwind gently. When it goes in days. And while paper sat at $55, the Shanghai silver premium over London spot was holding near 10%. Physical buyers in the largest physical silver market on Earth were paying 10% above a price the paper market called $55 just to lock in real metal. That premium isn't irrational. That premium is exactly what happens when the people who actually need the metal, not the traders who just want a cash settlement, refuse to chase the paper price lower. Let me pause here because I want to talk to you straight for a second. I know some of you are staring at positions that are bleeding right now. You watched silver climb from the 20s to $121 in January. You held through $85. You held through $63. And now the screen reads $57. And the question you're really asking isn't about the market at all. It's personal. Was I wrong? Here's the honest answer. Run the checklist with me. Is the 2026 supply deficit gone? The World Silver Survey, published April 2026, confirmed the sixth straight annual deficit at 46.3 million ounces. That number hasn't been touched. Not 1 ounce of it shifted because a Korean regulator made a statement or because funds had a rebalancing deadline. The deficit is the exact same today as it was when silver traded $121. Did industrial demand cancel its silver orders because Asian tech stocks tanked? The procurement engineers at the fabs, the solar plants, the EV contact system builders, the people who need silver for its conductivity, its thermal properties, its antibacterial qualities, they didn't discover a substitute material on Tuesday. Industrial buyers don't watch the Kospi. They watch their supply chain. And the supply chain is still tight. Is the Shanghai physical market following paper down? No. It's paying a 10% premium over it. The biggest physical buyers on the planet are doing the precise opposite of what the paper price says they should. 3 questions, 3 flat no's. The thesis is intact. A tightening monetary backdrop, a forced liquidation event, and a quarter-end deadline all showed up in the same window. Every one of them is real. Not one of them touches the structural case underneath silver. And every single one carries an expiration date. Now let me show you where the institutional money actually sits relative to where silver just printed. JP Morgan Research is modeling a 2026 average of $81, with a Q4 target of $85. Commerzbank, as of June 4th, has year-end silver at $80. HSBC carries a 2026 average of $75, with a year-end target of $70. Silver is at $57 today. The gap between where every major institutional desk sees silver by December and where it printed Tuesday runs somewhere between 23 and 49%. Not one of those desks revised their forecast over a Korean leveraged ETF blowup. Not one updated their model for quarter-end rebalancing. Those numbers are built on market structure, the deficit, the delivery mechanics, the industrial demand curve, and not a single one of those inputs moved this week. Now, the gold-silver ratio. It's sitting north of 70-1 right now, gold near $4,044, silver near $57. The long-run historical average since 1971 lives between 50 and 60-1. At 60-1, with gold completely unchanged, silver is $67.40. At 50-1, silver is $80.88. Neither of those numbers needs gold to budge a dollar. They just need the ratio to come back to normal. This ratio has hit 70 or higher twice in the last 15 years. March 2020 Cow it spiked to 124. Silver then ran from $12 to $49. In 2008 it touched 80. Silver then ran from $9 to $49. 2 separate cycles, same pattern. When silver sits at a historical extreme against gold, the snapback is large and it's fast. At 71-1 today, this ratio is deeper into extreme territory than it was at either of those prior turning points right before the reversal kicked in. That's not a call. That's the historical context I want you carrying into Monday. Here's your 3-number weekend plan. Not price targets, not forum chatter. 3 specific data points that show you the direction of the next leg before it shows up in price. Number 1, Brent crude, currently $73.91. Watch the Sunday night Asian Open. If the IRGC's Hormuz behavior holds through the weekend and tankers start rerouting around the Strait, crude gaps up Sunday night. Every dollar Brent closes above $78 at Monday's New York Open is a direct teardown of the deflation narrative that's been the engine of this entire metal sell-off. Number 2, the COMEX registered vault, 87.1 million ounces today. The CME publishes warehouse data every day before the U.S. session opens. If Monday's reading drops below 85 million, while July open interest is still above 15,000 contracts, physical delivery pressure is building in real time, in this exact window at a paper price of $57. That's not a hypothetical squeeze. That's the structure of the setup. Number 3, the dollar index at a 1-year high right now. That single number has been the most powerful mechanical driver of this entire paper decline. Not Iran, not Korea, the dollar. If the DXY breaks lower at Monday's open, the mechanism that's been crushing silver for 2 weeks is reversing. The dollar breaking down Monday morning is the signal above every other signal. Silver follows it within hours. Oil, vault, dollar. Write them down. Check them Sunday night and Monday morning before you look at anything else. Saturday morning, I'm posting an update with exactly where each of those 3 closed Friday and what Monday's open is shaping up to be. If you're not subscribed, do it right now. The people who see that post before the U.S. session opens Monday will have a real informational edge over everyone reading headlines live at the bell. If you're a channel member, the full playbook through the July delivery window is already live in the member section. It maps 3 specific scenarios through the July 4th holiday weekend, which creates a low-volume window right after First Notice Day that has historically amplified every directional move. Each scenario comes with its own thresholds and responses. It's there right now. One last thing, and I want a real answer in the comments. Not a price target, not bullish or bearish. One specific question. When silver was at $55 on Tuesday, what did you actually do? Bought more, held, and felt fine. Held and felt sick every time you looked. Almost sold but didn't. Actually sold. One of those. Drop it below. No judgment. No wrong answer. That's real psychological data from the people who are genuinely in this market, and it tells me exactly what this community needs from me heading into next week. I rate every comment. Iran's Revolutionary Guard hit a container ship in the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. The UN killed its escort operation 48 hours after standing it up. PCE printed 4.1. Quarter-end rebalancing ends Monday, First Notice Day is Monday, and silver is at $57. 3 of those 4 forces expire by Tuesday. The 4th, Hormuz, just got more complicated. Monday is going to be very interesting. I'll see you Saturday. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing here is financial, investment, legal, tax, or accounting advice. All markets carry risk, including the loss of principal. Verify every figure independently before making any decision with real money.